So today for a Complet presentations, I will be presenting Koolhaas and his firm, OMA. So Koolhaas is a Dutch architect, also an architectural theorist and urbanist. So here's the two quotes that I think that reflects his ideologies and his design philosophy. First is I like to think big. I always have. To me, it's very simple. If you are going to be thinking anyway, you might as well think big. It's a little excerpt from the SML and XL and NOMA books. And another quote is infrastructure is more important than architectures. So here's a little timeline about him. He was born in 1944 at Rotterdam, Netherlands. By the time he was 8, Koolhaas spent 4 years of his youth in Indonesia, where his father served as the director of the newly formed Cultural Institute. Following his dad's footsteps, Koolhaas began his career as the writer and a journalist. From 1968 to 1972, he studied at the Architectural Association in London. And then after graduating from the school in 1972, he received the Hartnett Fellowship, which allowed him to study at the Institute for Architecture and Urban Study in New York City. That is during that period where he wrote the book named Delirious New York, and his writing actually gained him the recognitions in the field of architecture before he actually designing a single building. In 1975, he formed the Office of Metropolitan Architecture, or known as OMA, with Madeleine Resendorm and Elia Zoe Zangelis. In 1994, he released another book named SML and XL, and also re-released his Delirious in New York. In 1995, he became the professor in practice as GSD of Harvard University. By 2000, he won the Pritzker Architecture Prize. Next is I want to talk a little bit about his writing. The very first book that he wrote is Delirious New York, that was published in 1978, and the book was later re-released in 1994. It was hailed by the critic as a classic text on modern architecture and society. So the book he described as a retroactive manifesto for Manhattan, or also he described it as an exploration of the culture of congestions, where the activity and the conditions that coexist in the city. Koolhaas looked upon as a density with choice and potentials. So he wrote this book during a period of financial crisis, with the city government narrowly avoiding bankruptcy throughout a substantial federal loan at a time when the confidence in the city is at an all-time low. Koolhaas promote Manhattan as a prototype of the modern metropolis, collaborations of visionary that strive to make life in the city a deeply irrational experience. Next is another book that's really well known, that collab with a Canadian graphics designer Bruce Mouse. The book is XMLXLNOMA. It's basically a dictionary, like a dictionary, a diary that, or a novel that combine photo, blend, fiction, essay, and random thought with work that produced by Koolhaas, OMA since 1975. And the book title is also its framework. The projects and the essay are arranged according to scale. So here is several of his residential early commission work. The first is the Villa d'Ava, or known as a glass house with a swimming pool on the roof, which is a modern and reformal private residence that was commissioned for the Bougies Parisians family debuted. So initially, the client wanted a house that was kind of like a versions of Villa Savoy of Le Corbusier, where he wanted a glass house that placed in the field property, and he wanted two panoramic view of Paris and the Eiffel Tower from the pool. So for the site, the house is located at St. Cloud's in the residential area of the hill that descends steeply toward the Seine River. So the site is like the big room with a border made of green spaces, garden wall, and slope. So it consists of three parts: a sloping garden, the main volume of the villa, and the garage as the street level. So for the floor plans, the house was divided into two perpendicular apartments, moving in opposite direction to take the view that seemed to float. And the pool, which is supported by the concrete structures, covered by the glass pavilion added. So the idea was to create on main floor with a social area where a remarkable feature given the fluidity of the space that allow continuations of the part inside the house. For this reason, you can see that there is no furniture that plays on the main floor. But actually, in fact, they're like small amount of furniture, but oriented longitudinally along the line of the side wall. So in turn of that, you can see the presence of the large window around the perimeter of the house, which make the internal and external environment relationship. Also, the apartment can deliver beyond the central volume, hovering over the garden, referring it as the intimate area. Also, it's a mark that split between the two bedroom. The bedroom act as like individual department, so as each of them has its own area of services and a staircase that allow access independently from the main plant. So on this floor, there's the presence of bathroom, one serving each room, located in rectangular volume retract behind the exterior wall. This is the Bordeaux house, which located in Bordeaux, France. It was designed and constructed from 1994 to 1998. So the Bordeaux house is a private residence that overlooked the city, as it was built into the hills. The house includes a courtyard resembling a cloister. It's considered a machine for living due is considered a machine for living due to the technology advances needed, as the owner of the house was involved in a tragic accident that confined him to a wheelchairs. So the owner, he wanted more complex design, as he believed that it would, from then on, it's become his world. Therefore, Koolhaas design house was an idea with 3 levels stacked on the top of one another. Each of it has its own spatial conditioning. So for the concept is to create an intimate living space for the family and division of the living area according to the functions. So for the site, observing the relation of the building to the site, the building sit on a cape-like hill overlooking the city of Bordeaux and the river of Garonne. So the direction relation between the building and the topography, that when the land reaches its highest point, the building graves the land in its fight is so a space for its flat natures. The building it border against the earth beneath it. Also, the structure and the character of the space are intricately intertwined in the house. Spatial flow influence the structure, and the structure need influence the space. So the house, the 3 different levels represent 3 different structural system style, and it's create 3 different spaces. The underground, the lowest point, was excavated into the hill. It consists of like a labyrinth, which include a kitchen, TV room, which lead to the courtyard and a driveway. The middle ground or the middle level is entirely made of glass and considered to be a daytime space for the family activity, and the top floor consisting of a concrete box with a small window designed for private space, such as bedroom appeared to be levitate. So uniting them is the central elevator, which is camouflaged as an office design, especially for the owner that is unable to walk up the setup stair. So for the structural system of the house is held together with 3 major supports: an L-shaped piece of metal at the back, and then the I-beam. An I-beam that runs from the ceiling to the ground, connected by a steel cable, and finally the metal cylinder that hides the staircase. So next is a breakdown axon diagrams of the house levels. So the house appear to construct like a collage of 3 different architecture styles created by 3 different architects. The plan of the underground level is strongly mirrored the geometric element used by Le Corbusier, Ronchim's Notre Dame, and the ground level looked like identical to Philip Johnson's glass house, as the house has panoramic view of the city, and the cylinder looked like very like the fireplace in glass house. And finally, the pattern on the concrete box is similar to Edward Stone fascinations of the use of carved circles on ornament and windows, such as the roof of the original MoMA building. So here is a few pictures of the interior within the house. The top left is I think is the elevator shaft that at the first floor. The top right is the staircase that can be accessed from the other number in the house, and then the bottom two, one is the elevator office that's used by the owner in the wheelchair, and on the far left, on the right bottom is the structure of the L beam shape that support the house. Next is the Kunsthaus, which is my earlier president study. It was designed and built from 1987 to 1992 and located in Rotterdam in Netherlands. As you can see at this side plan, the Kunsthaus is located in the context of the museum part. It's seen face to face with the architecture museum and is provided as a gateway, a transfer through the central axis of the part on the north and through the south. So since the building looked really simple with the subdued facade, but it actually is hiding all the complex planning of the building. So as you can see, the floor plan and the diagram right here, the Kunsthaus itself is organized as a sequence of space filled vertically, connect through the circulatory ramp and sectional view. Although the massing is quite simple, the sectional overlap provides a rich spatial variety throughout the building, often resulting in moments where a person can see through a several layer of space from a single vantage point. For the plans, it was organized as a free plan, and is the square plan that is divided into 4 functional areas. It's composed of 3 major exhibition spaces that can be used separately, and an auditorium and an independent accessible restaurant of the ground level. And as you can see, the floor plan is crossed by 2 different routes. One is the road that running east and west in parallel to the Mass Boulevard. Second is the public ramp that running north and south through the center, extending the access of the museum part. So for the structures, so different kind of column were used, and they acted like the structure grid for the building. And every room has a completely different structure approach, especially the auditorium that sit on a ramp with the structural column that perpendicular to the ramp. Also, there were columns that randomly arranged in the exhibition hall. Also in the main exhibition hall, the steel columns are clad in hollowed out tree trunk that referencing the tree in the museum part. The apertures, so the treatment of the facade of each volume create a characteristic quality of light, glass, and polycarbonate wall create a varying degree of transparency. One of the gallery is skylit space with a series of red tubes that weave between the roof trusses and connect a semicircular lattice bracing system. The next building is Educatorium, and was designed and constructed from 1992 to 1995, and is located at Utrecht, Netherlands. For this building, I find it is very similar in terms of structure and the fluidity, the circulations within the building compared to Kunsta. So, the educatorium was designed specifically so that the processes of socializations, learning, and examinations would be entangled within one another, blurring the boundary between the lounges, the classroom, and corridor, such that there's a constant redefinitions of what it means to learn in a social environment. So the design of Educatorium was conceptualized as two planes that flow, wrap, and interlock with one another. In section, the two planes appear to be interconnected with one another. One plane is rigid, and the other fluid, as like the suggestion as to the programmatic, spatials, and social juxtapositions happening within the building. In both cases of the concrete floor place, there is a sense of fluidity, some more apparent than the other, where the floor become wall and become the ceiling in one simple motions. So as is so similar to the Kunsthal, which the program is like a fluid concept, and that align itself not only on a single level but on a multiple level where activity occur below or above or in between, and also for the structures. For example, at the cafeteria, where it's meant to accommodate like 1,000 students, is subject to the sloping floor plate above. Koolhaas Koolhaas was using the random column grid to break up the large volume into more intimate spaces that are defined by the cluster of columns in order to distract from the impersonal effects of the larger volume. Also, as with the notion of the ridges and the fluid concrete plan that define the formal aspects of the building, Koolhaas kept the juxtapositions of the differences in the circulation space, social activity as a way in which to contextualize the entire campus and the university within one single building. Also for the flow, where the curvatures, as you can see right here, is made out of concrete, but it's constructed out of structured steel numbers covered in concrete skin. Also, the smoothness nature of the concrete give a soft and airy quality that enriches the building's sense of openness and variability of circulations as a network for interconnected paths. So the next building is the Seattle Public Library that was constructed. It was designed and constructed from 1999 to 2004 and located in the heart of downtown Seattle in Washington, United States. So this is like another example of how Rams urbanized his building by diversifying the programs and organize the program according to his performance. So this building has 11 floors and abatements, and it was roughly 34,000 square meter. So for the concept is involved the reinvention of the library as an access point to the informations present in a variety of media, and the flexibility for the future expansions, and the notion of the public versus the private domain within the building. Data visualizations become a really big part for almost every OMA projects, where it's used in a tandem with word and more old-fashioned representations like model and drawing. For public, sometimes it's uncomfortable with judging aesthetic, looking at the chunk of the square footage assemble themselves into stack connect by ramp. Also, the chart also become a way of representing architecture anonymously. So from the outside, you can see it's as a massive glass building and straight line intersect, but there the shifting of the boxes provide the visitor experience of different view depending on where one in the library and their view can be altered. Example you can see right here, from level 5 to 6 you can has a view of the city. From level 7 to 10 you can see the view of the mountain Rainier, and from the level 11 to 12 you can see the waterfront of the Elliott Bay. And here are just some typical floor plans within the building. So for circulations, there are three ways to circulate around the library: stair, elevator, or escalator. The escalator are painted in a lime green color so that one person may navigate through the library in an easy fashion. Uninteresting aspects is covered that the fact that the elevator does not stop on floor number 5, which is the meeting room floor. The floor is very secluded part of the library in comparison to the other public area felt. The most prominent part of the Seattle Central Library has to do with the book spiral. When a person is roaming around the book spiral floor, the void in between has a clear view of the living room floor, which has shelf in the radiating pattern. The idea of radiating can potentially tie in with the idea of the spiral part of the book spiral. Although the book spiral is not a spiral, but rather is a zigzag circulations. But I think the maybe Rem Koolhaas could have intended on making a person perceive that they are in a spiral being. The structure system of the building, the structural system of the building composed of both load bearing and the seismic system. The load bearing system, which are column and beam, support the gravity loads of the elevated platform and cantilever. And for the seismic structure in the form of the steel grid of diamond-shaped system provides stability during the seismic event. Also, in order to minimize the number of column and beam, many of them were given angle to connect each other so that they can transfer load to the central core or another column. Core columnar number carry gravity load the building. On the other hand, the steel grid system opposes the lateral system of the building and support the glass covering. The diagonal grid system is designed to withstand the lateral forces caused by the wind or the earthquakes. The structure itself is also the apertures where the light can shine through the transparent diamond-shaped glass panels. So the next building is very similar to the previous building in terms of the scale. Is the Casa de Musica. It was designed and constructed from 1991 to 2005, and it is located in Porto, Portugal. So for the urbanism and the site setting, Since the part, this whole part of the city was still intact, and OMA chose not to articulate the new concert hall as a new segment of a small scale circular wall around the rotunda, but to create a solitary building standing on a new, more intimate square that connects to the historical part of the rotunda, the Bovista, and enclosed by the three urban blocks. With this concept, issue of symbolism, visibility, and access were resolved in one gestures. For the concept of the building, OMA bring the relationship between the concert hall and the public inside, as well as the outside the building by considering the building as a solid mass from which were eliminate the two shoebox shaped concert hall and the all other public program, creating a hollow outblock. The building reveal its content to the city without being didactic. At the same time, the city exposed to the public inside in a way that has never happened before. So the remaining spaces between the exposed public functions consist of secondary serving spaces such as a foyer, a restaurant, terraces, technical spaces, and vertical transport. Continuous public route connects all public functions and remaining spaces located around the Grand Auditorium by the means of stair, platforms, and escalator. The building become an architectural adventures. The loop create the possibility to use the building for festival with simultaneous performances. For these structures, the building is visually and spatially defined by a striking faceted exterior from which its conventional interior spaces have been extracted. For the innovative use of material and color throughout was another imperative, as well as the unique current light glass wall at either end of the Grand Auditorium. The wall are cladded in plywood with enlarged wood pattern embossed in gold, giving a dramatic views and perspective. Last but not least, the very iconic and controversial building that kind of go against the normal vertical skyscrapers. So CCTV headquarters, or China Central Television's headquarters, that located in Beijing. It was designed and constructed from 2002 to 2012, and the CCTV is one of the three-part building of this whole media part. So for the concept, so the concept is to concentrate all the activity in every program in a single system. Also is accommodate all the functions of the media and the TV productions within the building as a interconnected loop of interconnected activities. Also, the building will actively engage with the cityscape. As you can see the building as any direction around the city, and some is at some angle is appear really small, and at some angle is appear really huge. The basic geometry of the whole building is a continuous loop, cantilever overhangs, double structured grid system, and the double L shapes that connects together. So here is the diagram of the program within the building. So the yellow is a cafeteria, and dark blue is studio, orange is the lobby, and the pale green is broadcasting. The light blue is for sport and recreations. The red is for the private area for VIB. So most the rec area are located on the first bottom floor, and the elevator are situated in both of the tower. Separate the lobby for the structural system. So due to the form of the building, there were a lot of steels are used, which could lead to the weight issue and the instability. Also, the lateral and the vertical loads of the building, and also Beijing is an earthquake prone area. So therefore, the diagonal grid system was forming. Also, here is the structures braces system that unfolds, and here also the facade system, where you can see there are like several layer of the digrid frame system that layering next to each other. Also for the method of constructing the building was their construct begin at the two tower until the two met and then connect at the center of the overhang. Here's some also like similar to the other building of Koolhaas, all the structure elements are exposed. So here is my comparative analysis section of the floor building. So I pick Educatorium, Casa de Musica, and Seattle Public Library for the comparisons, because I think they all had very similar. They have several similarity in terms of the circulations, the interconnects activity within the building, and the smooth transitions like throughout the buildings as a whole.